Hello, buenos dias. I'm coming to you from my room, we'll call it a room, in Pontevedra. I arrived actually a few hours ago, despite all of the rain, and I ended up buying a poncho today because my rain jacket is no longer holding off the rain. So I bought a bright purple poncho. I'll make sure I show you a photo of that later. That is some pretty fashionable stuff. Oh my gosh. But you know what? Fashion doesn't matter right now because it's keeping me dry, and that will feel really good tomorrow for an incredible hike that is supposed to be about 14 miles, primarily uphill. And I am hopeful that the weather will clear at least some at the end of the day, so that when I arrive, I will get some of the fantastic views. I've heard that it's kind of amazing. So we're going to pray for some clearing weather tomorrow, and we're going to pray that the trail that way, that path, that direction, it's the spiritual variant that starts tomorrow for me. We're going to pray that that stays open. I've heard that because of all of the rain we're having, that some of the spots are not open, not available. And in that case, I'm not sure what happens because my all of my accommodations are set, and they're set under the assumption that I will be on the spiritual variant. So if for some reason I'm not on that, then I will figure it out, right? Because it always works the way it needs to work, and that's just the way it goes. That's how I choose to believe. So we're going to lean into that, and we will see how that goes. So I'm grateful for my brand new purple poncho because it is going to keep the rain at least off of my body, which will keep me a little bit warmer than what I experienced today. Now, despite all that, it was still a good day. It was about 9 miles. The first hour or so, it wasn't raining, so that was lovely. What was interesting though, and what I'm noticing, and a couple days ago, I was going to come in and do a video around this topic. If I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? I came up with that phrase a few years ago. I'll share why. What's really interesting though is when I came on to share that a couple days ago, I could not get the connection to work. It was I tried a few different times, and then later when I came on yesterday, I think it was, because I didn't do a video 2 days ago because of the connection just was poor. And so yesterday when I did a video, something else had come up, and that wasn't the topic. What's interesting is, it's always perfect timing, right? As I was walking, I was like, I know why the topic waited, because it needed to be coming up in this moment. When I was walking earlier today, if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? Now I'll get back to that. So first, where that came from, a number of years ago, after one of the car accidents that I had experienced, I was in deep healing. I had a lot of things that I was doing, as far as taking care of myself, right? My job at that time was self-care and nurturing myself in healing to make sure that I could get back to where I was. It had been, I'd had a number of concussions by that point, and knew that I needed to really lean into my self-care, my healing, so that I could get back to wherever I needed to be, right? And as I was going through that journey, there were days, and let me say this, that I know that it's a privilege to be able to have the space, the time, and the ability and the resources to be able to take care of and do some of the things that I was able to do. And it's also, it felt a little overwhelming or exhausting, or just why can't I just be better? I just wanted to be better, and also understand that timing, right? And so there were times when I was tired of being tired. I was tired of doing all of the self-care just to get through the day. And that's what it had come down to, is I was doing all of the things in order to just get through the day. And it felt like I was starting below, let's say I was starting below the level, and I would get to like status quo, or let's say neutral, or let's say 0, or whatever it is. And that was as far as I was getting. And it took everything I had just to get to that spot, let alone anything above it. And I remember at one point, my husband and I were talking, and we were talking about doing all the things that I'm doing, and like there must be something else, right? There must be something more, and so I allowed, kind of leaned into that, or allowed that to kind of help me navigate, or be open to navigating. And at one point, I had this thought of, if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? And what I mean by that is my husband adores me, right? He would do anything he could to help me heal. And he did. He took me to appointments. He helped encourage me to do what I needed to do. He helped remind me to do XYZ. Or if I was on the couch, he would grab me, he would grab me the ice pack, for example, for my headaches, or whatever. Like he would do anything he could to help me. And yet at the end of the day, the responsibility of me taking action, deeper, more meaningful, consistent action, who does that fall on? That falls on me, right? And so I had this thought of, if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? Meaning, the vision of my healing falls on me. The vision of where I need to go and what that needs to look like falls on me. And if I'm not willing to do that, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, he adores me, but he can't do the things for me. He can remind me, he can help me remember, he can bring me things out of the freezer, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to do the things, right? I'm the one who is sitting down and taking the self-care, or I'm the one who, like, he can't go to yin yoga for me, right? I have to do all of those things for myself. So if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? And that's been something that's really resonated with me off and on. And I noticed that it's been coming up a couple times, and today it came up, and I want to tell you why it came up today. A few days ago, I talked about, actually, I think it was a little bit longer. I don't remember, the days are starting to kind of run together. And as we get more and more pilgrims now, they're kind of running together a little bit more. A number of days ago, I had talked about how it felt like on the path that morning, it felt like there was a jockeying for positioning, and like this competition, and like, gotta go first, and getting in this space. And it was just such an awkward feeling, right? And so I just like removed myself from that space, kind of pulled aside and like let some people pass, and then just kept going. What was really interesting is today I was feeling a little of that again, but today was different. And today this phrase came up, if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? Because what I noticed is the path was more narrow. Is that narrower or more narrow? I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. But the path was narrower. And we were going uphill, and it was very rocky. And some people had their walking poles, right? A lot. I would say the majority of people have walking poles. And as you're going up those rocks with your walking poles, it's slower because you're finding a spot for each of those poles, one in each hand, right? And so without the poles, and I have 430 approximately miles of practice without poles, not to count all the practice I did prior to being here without poles. And so for me, going up the rocks, going up the hill, going down the hill, whatever, I don't have poles, so I just go. And a couple of points, like, I want to be really mindful how I speak, right? That's always really important to me. The jockeying for positioning is one word, but the blocking people from being able to pass is a completely different experience. And I experienced that today from a handful of people who had their poles, and I would lean to the side and start to go, and then a pole would come out and did they see me? I think so. Unless they don't have peripheral vision. I suppose that's possible, right? It was interesting to witness. And so this phrase, if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight, right? So I could have stopped and pulled over and let people pass. And if you, A, it was really, really, really rainy. But B, if you saw how many pilgrims were on the trail that had poles, I think I would have been pulled over for a time, right? And so I was really mindful of how I did it. I went up and around the side and took care of what I needed to take care of and got around, and I bien caminoed people. So that's the pilgrims passing, you know, bien camino, buen camino, buen camino, buen camino, buen camino. And every time that we do that, it's almost like, I respect your journey, you respect mine, and I'm going to keep going. You know, it's almost like namaste in yoga, right? Namaste to you, the light in me sees the light in you. Buen camino, the pilgrim in me sees the pilgrim in you. Maybe that's a good way to describe it. And so I did my best to say that every time that I would pass someone. And it was interesting because there were a few times when there were comments made in English. So not guessing what was being said, but remarks that were made as I was passing someone that had their poles. I'm not here to judge you if you walk with poles. That's fine. I don't walk with poles. So it was just such an interesting journey until we spread out a little bit. And in the beginning, it just felt like this tightness, right? And then we spread out and we find our spots and we keep going, and then people will pull off and they'll stop and then they'll come back in, and so it's this whole interesting thing. But if I lose sight of me, who else has my sight? And I wanted to be really mindful of that today because it's still my Camino, right? It's her Camino, it's his Camino, it's their Camino, absolutely. And it's also my Camino too, right? So being mindful of that in whatever way that is showing up. Like, how are you losing sight of yourself under the expectation that someone else is going to take care of it for you? Under the guise that someone else is going to pull you through that, right? And so I want us to just consider, how are we navigating our journey, and are we the ones holding on to the sight and the vision for ourselves, or are we hopeful that someone else will hold it for us? Are we hopeful that someone else will continue to remind us? Like I said in the beginning, my husband adores me. I know he does. I know he would do anything he could for me. But tomorrow, when I have those 14 and a half miles, mostly uphill, is he coming here to do those miles for me? Probably not. I need to be the one holding the sight for myself. I need to be the one holding the vision for myself. And I'll also appreciate all of the support, the kindness, the grace, and everything else that comes along with it. But that's not first and foremost. First and foremost is me having and holding the vision for myself, the sight for myself, the reason why for myself. And when I need to, you can better believe I'm going to tap into the support from others. I'm going to tap into the belief from others. But first and foremost, it has to come from within. The chutzpah, as we might say, or the first up again. So I thought, let's just have a conversation around it and share some thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have, what you're thinking. If you have questions, if you have other things that are coming up for you, or where are you keeping sight of something that you're focused on? What is the vision that you're holding for yourself? Because yes, it starts with you, and let's all hold it for each other too. So I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.